Today on the DML News podcast, Joe Biden raises an extreme amount of money while Donald Trump visits a slain police officer. Also, the U.S. is now going to cater to foreigners. We'll tell you how. Religion is on the decline. And, of course, we've got some immigration stories that will blow your mind once again. So get ready. It's Good Friday, and it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. Dennis is across from me. Ryan's on the computers back there doing all the fancy editing. We are family. We are coming to you here on Good Friday. So for all of those of you who celebrate Good Friday, that is a blessing. And we will definitely be saying our prayers throughout the day.
I wore my Easter colors today.
You wore your Easter colors. You do look like an Easter celebrator. Okay. It's very pastel-y and very cute. That being said, let's just real quick, we're going to have a show today because it is Good Friday. It will be about 30 minutes, so we're going to get through some very interesting stories. Today, we are giving the entire program for free to Facebook, to YouTube, to Apple Podcasts, so enjoy it. But we would ask you, please, to download the DML News app and consider becoming a Team DML member. You could do that by clicking on tab 5 and taking a look at the Interact tab, which will lead you to Team DML. You will meet thousands of people who are like-minded, and all the parts of the show here that we can't talk about because there's censorship going galore. That is what we show you. That's what we talk about on Team DML. With that being said, also, if you're a DML CBD customer, you only have a few days left. It ends on the 31st, and I'm talking about the big, huge BOGO, the DMLCBD.com/BOGO, BOGO, where everything is a buy one, get one free. You buy one, we give you 2. You buy 3, we give you 6. You buy 10, we give you 20. All these things that are going to help you one way or another, should be anyway. We have so many thousands of customers that say they've improved their sleep, they've improved their skin, they have improved their immune system. They are feeling far less aches and pains. The anxiety they feel, even though Joe Biden tries to just add it on to you like white on rice, everybody says their anxiety goes down. So that being said, DMLCBD.com/BOGO. Dennis, the first thing I want to dive into is there was a story, in fact, I sent it to you late last night, about the United States is now going to recalculate or recalibrate or whatever it may be, how it is that they assign race to people here in the United States, right? What's the details on that?
Yeah, so I'll go quickly here so we can get into it. For the first time in 27 years, the U.S. government is changing how it categorizes people by race and ethnicity in an effort that federal officials believe will more accurately count residents who identify as Hispanic and of Middle Eastern and North African heritage. The revisions to the minimum categories on race and ethnicity are the latest effort to label and define the people of the United States. The evolving process often reflects changes in social attitudes and immigration, as well as a wish for people in an increasingly diverse society to see themselves in the numbers produced by the federal government. Now, as for details as what's changing, under the revisions, questions about race and ethnicity that previously were asked separately on forms will be combined into a single question. That will give respondents the option to pick multiple categories at the same time, such as Black, American Indian, and Hispanic. Research has shown that large numbers of Hispanic people aren't sure how to answer the race question when the question is asked separately because they understand race and ethnicity to be similar, and they often pick, quote, some other race or do not answer the question. A Middle Eastern and North African category will be added to the choices available for questions about race and ethnicity. People descended from places such as Lebanon, Iran, Egypt, and Syria have been encouraged to identify as white, but now will have the option of identifying themselves in the new group. Results from the 2020 census, which asked respondents to elaborate on their backgrounds, suggest that 3.5 million residents identify as Middle Eastern and North African. The changes also strike from federal forms the words Negro and Far East, now widely recognized as pejorative, I can never pronounce that word, pejorative, as well as the terms majority and minority, because they fail to reflect the nation's complex racial and ethnic diversity.
You know, I don't even know what to say about this stuff anymore. I mean, first of all, how many reports have we done over the last 2 weeks where black guys and Hispanic guys who are criminals, hard criminals at that, are being checked off as white? I can guarantee you, Dennis, that this little scheme that they've got going on here, it's not going to work. It is not going to work. If you are Hispanic and you don't know how to mark yourself off on a census, well, you shouldn't be here in the first place. You need to get back to your homeland and go to school and ask them to recalibrate you again, because you really came out of it stupid. Maybe if we just stopped taking in so much immigration, we wouldn't have to worry about this whole thing. I mean, my God, this morning I had to give blood, and the woman helping me was black, and we just started BSing back and forth. And I asked her, I says, "Are you married? Do you have kids?" And she says, "No, I can't get married." And I said, "Why?" She goes, "I can't find anybody." I said, "You can't find anybody?" She says, "No." She goes, "Nobody in this country wants to work anymore. Nobody. They just want to all live off the government." And I was like, wow, she sounds like she should be on the show. These markings, they aren't so this way people feel better about themselves. It's so this way they could get more free programs. They could get more free crap. And people like you and Ryan and myself who are white-skinned, we are just going to keep on being tossed into the incinerator, in the sense of you don't need anything, and they're going to keep on burning us while they give away everything to everybody else. But when it comes tax season on April 15th, they'll suddenly care about you again because you're a top earner.
Totally. And they're going to try to use this as a expansion of representation. This is going to be abused to the highest extent. You can have somebody come in from Lebanon or Syria, probably someone who could maybe also commit vast amounts of crime. And if they decide, I want to identify as white, because we're in that era of identify as you wish, they commit a crime. And what do they get marked as? A white person. And then when we see the stats at the end of the year, and MSNBC and CNN are like, wow, there's been a percentage increase in white crime. Well, we know why. It's because people are now abusing these forms, because, instead of just simplifying what it's always been for the past 27 years, we're just going to overcomplicate with all these new ridiculous categories.
I would place a bet. I would almost place everything I own on this bet. I bet you, if you pulled all this crap away, all these documents and everything else that you check boxes and you get one great thing after another, I bet you if you just went up to the people from the Middle East that we're taking in and said, we're going to give you the entire state of Michigan just to you. We will kick out all the blacks, all the whites, all the Hispanics, but you're going to have your own state. I bet you 99% of them would say, that's the way we want it. I bet you if you went down every demographic, they would all say, give us our own state, give us our own state, give us our own state. If you ask the whites and they were to say, give us our own state, we're the only race that would wind up being crucified for that. And I hate using the word crucified on Good Friday, but we would be crucified. The other people, if they all said they wanted their own state, would be, well, they want that because they're treated negatively and they're trying to hide from the big bad white people.
Ryan and I actually had this conversation last night, and this maybe goes on more of the national stage. Our country, meaning the U.S., I mean, we are givers, or at least we were. We had probably, without even going into historical detail, 2 or 3 chances to become global superstars to the extent of taking over the world, is the best way to put it. And we chose not to. We chose to, we're a constitutional republic, but we went the route of, let's see if we can instill democracy in the world. Let's see if we can instill good faith into the world. Because I'll use an example. If we were to give it to, let's say, a Muslim majority, historical context has shown that when they come into a country, they literally take it over and they impose their religion. And I'm tired of going onto Twitter/X and seeing videos of Muslims stoning a woman because she decided to read a book. So,
or didn't dress appropriately. And by us being a country of givers, we are now in this position of we just have given so much that
One, we can't really take anything at this point because we're crippled as a society, and also those we've given to have taken abuse of us. I mean, they have abused our immigration system. They've abused our foreign policy. They've abused the safety that this country once provided. I mean, again, I got to give credit to the Twitter X sphere in a way. I'll see videos of 1980s, 1970s of people walking through the streets, and it's like, wow, there's a woman just walking and doesn't have to worry about getting literally socked in the face, which we'll talk about later on. Now you don't see that. It's more of a, even if you take the crime aspect away, the cities are congested, they're dirty. I mean, we know of a certain area around us that has just littered trash everywhere, and I get so angry because that wasn't the case, 30 or 40 years ago. And yet we're supposed to be in the era of like, we're more green energy positive than ever before. Really? So I think this translates to a stage of where, the US really had a chance to be super bad guys at certain points in history. And we chose not to. We chose to try and actually be the beacons of light. And as a result, we are here where we are today.
Well, I'm going to add a little bit to what you said there. First of all, we had a chance to be the bad guys, but we didn't. Instead, we said, send us all your bad guys. And now we're a country of bad guys.
Yeah.
We were a country of giving. And now we're filled as a country with nothing but takers. And that when you don't give, they'll call you racist. They'll call you all these bad names. We are a society now that is filled with dependence. And there's one other thing that you said about, when they've destroyed stuff or when they take our welfare system. Our welfare system was supposed to be a safety net. It was supposed to be to help people when they were down, and so this way they could get themselves back up. It was a program to help the elderly who had participated by building this country their entire life, and then at the end, when they no longer can work, when they no longer can participate like a younger abled body, that they were taken care of. And this is not the case anymore. We're taking away more and more from our elderly. We're giving more and more away to people who are in foreign lands. We are giving more and more to people who don't deserve it. And as some of the stories here we're going to show here, we have, and I say this almost every show, we have now changed the definition of a criminal to define it as a victim, and a victim is now somehow the criminal. With that being said, I bring this up today. I hate to be Debbie Downer on Good Friday, but it's an important thing to state. Not only is the country falling in terms of who it's taking into this country, we're falling to the idea that we are this melting pot of absolute losers, okay? But religion in general, a very important thing that this country was built upon. Everything. The U.S. dollar says, "In God we trust." When you go into a courtroom, you have to hold your hand and swear on the Bible and swear to Almighty God. We have really, really stripped religion from our society. Give the new numbers on the decline here, Dennis.
Yeah. So Americans are increasingly calling themselves unaffiliated with any religion or rejecting religion altogether, at a time when influential Republicans are leaning into Christian nationalism to shape public policies.
This is from Far Left Axios. By the way.
But that's why I had the little laugh there. The survey found that 26% of Americans now consider themselves unaffiliated with a religion. That's up 5 percentage points from 2013 and reflects a widening gap between how citizens and lawmakers see religion's role in society. Just a slim majority of Americans, 53%, now say that religion is important in their lives, which is down from 72% in 2013.
So let's stop at that, because that's enough in terms of the number statistics. There's two things to recognize, and I know almost everybody listening to this program will agree with me. When you pull out religion, when you pull out God from a society that was basically created on that, we were based in Judeo-Christian sort of theory and principles and guidelines, and it's stripped. It is absolutely stripped. And that's why we see the society crumbling around us. We have, too many of us have abandoned God, have abandoned what is right and what is wrong. And if you want to see why this country has lost its moral compass, It's not because Joe Biden is just so powerful and crazy. It's because he, like so many other people, don't look up to a higher power. And, for me personally, each and every day when I make my choices, and I don't always make the right choice, I make mistakes and I sin just like anybody else. But my sins are far less than they once were. My choices are far better than they once were. And that's because almost everything that I do is dictated by my faith. And so if I'm going to do something, I don't even know what kind of example you want to make. Let's just say, for instance, there's somebody who needs help, right? And I'm a little late. I'll look at that person, screw it, somebody else. Well, if I think about how that's going to reflect when I one day go to the pearly gates, ain't going to be good. So I will stop and help that person because that's what I know God would want from me. If more people lived like that, and I'm not trying to be like, hey, I'm the beacon, I'm the poster child of who you should be, but if more people were assigning themselves to what is wrong and what is right in the eyes of God, this country would find its way back very quickly. But you have the media and Hollywood and politicians always shunning God. And God forbid you, no pun intended there, but God forbid you show up to a rally and you look as if you are Christian, or if you're walking and you're holding a Bible, it has now become that you are dictated or you are deemed as a radical, which is just absolutely insane.
Look, to your point, like you have these other factors, the media, in some cases, our government being, like I said, factors into why this is decreasing. But even certain institutions that just aren't what they once were, like marriage. I mean, you and mom are a very rare case.
Oh, God.
And don't get me wrong, there are people who get divorced because there's a abuse present, or because the spouse cheated, and that's the example, right? Marriage is supposed to be a very sacred thing that, especially in our society, like you do marriage in a Muslim country, and your wife even looks at another guy, she's getting stoned in a viral video. But for America, we originally crafted to where it was supposed to be this unique thing of the nuclear family. Instead, you got people out there, and usually they're bad people, who abuse it. They get married 3 or 4 times because they're getting married for the wrong reasons. They break up their families and they hurt their kids by proxy. And I think in that regard, it's a lack of faith, because a lot of those people just worship themselves in a way, And I'm not saying, like, again, there are people out there who get divorced for correct reasons. If you're being abused, you leave. But there are people who have abused the concept of marriage. It's supposed to be a man and a woman, raising a family in the eyes of God, on good faith. And instead, they're doing it because, maybe I get 2 years of hooking up with her, and then, I divorce, and maybe I take the money from this one, and then that kid has to spend weekends and weeks with each other. And as a result, in 2024, that's why you see the divorce rate start to increase each and every year, because no one holds real value to it anymore. They just abuse those principles and institutions.
I just, it's amazing you're saying what you're saying, although this is starting to become more of a conversation about marriage. But I just recently, in the last few days, had somebody sort of in a sly kind of way preach to me about their own excellence and about how, they're righteous and they do all these different things and they do the right thing. And I'm sitting there saying, my God, how many times you've been married? 3, 4? Maybe if you would just humble yourself just a little bit in the eyes of God, just humble yourself just a little bit and recognize the fact that, you are missing your religion. And if you did, maybe you would be able to see where your shortcomings are versus where they are not. And the other thing too is that with my father just passing, right? He wasn't a very good father. He was not a very good husband. And, one of the last things I emphasized was giving him forgiveness. And I had these conversations with other people. And I said to them, I said, look, Jesus today, on this day, Jesus is crucified on the cross by people who beat him, who spit on him, who called him a liar, who just did as horrible things to a human being as one can do. And what's his last word? Please, Lord, forgive them, for they not know what they do. I mean, so if Jesus couldn't give forgiveness, who are we not to, right? So, but listen, the people who don't want to accept that forgiveness, or the people who reject it or don't take it seriously, are the people who are most in pain, because they're the ones who have absolutely no God in their life. They have no presence of religion. They have no presence of faith. And they're the ones who probably struggle on a day in and day out basis, and probably just do not want to admit it.
Well, look, I mean, it comes down to the extended hand theory. Like, you can give the extended hand to someone, and if they're going to turn it away because of their own selfish ego, then you have to look back and say, well, my hand was extended. You didn't take it. And you know what's going to happen? May not be today, may not be tomorrow, may not be in a year from now, but there will be a time, because it happens to everyone, where whether it's they're in a hospital bed, or they have that moment, and they're going to reflect. And like this example, right? I went through multiple marriages, and they all failed, probably because of my own issues, because I never took the chance to self-reflect. I impacted my child or children, and as a result, they probably have a deep resentment that the fact that they never had parents together, or by extension, just a loving family. And, three, then their own self-reflection, they're going to say, well, maybe I should have just taken that extended hand and, see past my own hubris. And look, you can extend the hand, and if it's not taken, it's not taken, but at least, in good faith, you extended the hand. So, and that's the thing, right? Because it's Good Friday, Easter's coming up. It's always reflective with these holidays. Are you going to be surrounded at a table with people that love you, that are going to be eating breakfast or dinner together and joking around and then spending the day together? Or are you going to be maybe shuffling your kid to the mom or dad's house, or in certain cases, sitting alone at the table? And look, I know some in our audience probably, if they had or they're widowed, or their kids are married with their own kids, and they're living across the country. I feel for those guys, and I understand that's beyond their circumstance. But then there are people who just actively choose it. And again, if you're not going to take the extended hand, that's on you. And that's why on Easter you may be either sitting alone, or you're shuffling your kids off to the other parent's house.
I want to be very clear on something too, because I don't want people to misinterpret what we're saying, because that happens all the time. There are people who try. They can't get the other person to,
Totally.
and a marriage I'm talking about. And like I said, we're starting to take this into marriage, which we should probably curb it. But there is more than one example in my life where somebody didn't want to get divorced, wanted to have the nuclear family, wanted to do the right thing, went to God, asked God for help, or whatever it may be, and that other person still went along and did what they did, the bad stuff, or the cheating, or whatever, rejected. Sometimes it happens to people twice.
Right. And
But
I'm just really quick.
yeah.
I'm saying beyond marriage. I'm saying in terms of the context of religion, right? Because let's say you're a good faith person, and you have multiple family members that either one, want nothing to do with you, or not religious or anything. The whole point is that you can, whether it's friends, sometimes it's coworkers. I've seen it where people will go with their coworkers to spend a holiday because, their family fails on that front. Religion, especially when it comes, in my personal opinion, Catholicism, and I think, at least being a Catholic, a big thing with that religion is that we can be self-reflective and critical. I'm not going to go into other religions, but for example, I don't like the Pope that we have right now, because one, he has crazy ideas, and two,
He's radical.
he's very radical. And I can say too that in Catholicism, there have been cases where there have been Catholic priests who have been molesters. I mean, Hollywood never fails to remind us. They put out a movie every 2 years to spotlight it. And, that's not my religion. I condemn those people. But I know that when I go to church this Sunday and I'm sitting in the pew, that it's not that I'm praying to those people. I'm praying for my family, my friends, and the good faith of just trying to be a good Catholic.
Mhm.
And when it comes to, like I said, that theory of you extend the hand, it doesn't get taken. Well, again, that's on them. That's just them being blinded by sometimes their own hubris. And, like I said, there are people who probably are seeking that or actively trying it, but maybe their husband passed or their wife passed, and they're sitting alone at the table. And, that's when you have to reflect, like, hey, I got to be appreciative of what I have, because that could be me, someone who has that good faith and is extending it, but they can't even get their kids maybe to fly across the country to, come sit at them with the table.
Right, and again, it's about the circumstances of why somebody can't come or whatever it may be. I think that the big point here is that the lack of religion in this country is leading the country down a very, very dark path, and until we have a resurgence of spirituality and faith, there's no hope for a country that doesn't know who it is and who it is that it's supposed to be praying to.
And I'll end really quickly with this, at least. I do have a theory, because this goes with a little bit of the idea things are cyclical. Maybe it's ignorant hope, but I do think that we will actually maybe see a turn in the next coming years, because I think you can only get so faithless to a point where when you do get to there, you do want to actually see faith. And I have actually seen some surveys where people believe Gen Z will actually become a more religious group as time goes on. I could be so wrong. I hope I'm not, but I have the faith that maybe if things are cyclical, people will start to maybe reinvest in their faith.
I hope you're right. From your lips to God's ears. Moving away from faith and religion for a second and going to a guy who I don't believe has any. Joe Biden yesterday hooked up with two other horrible human beings, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. And they held a Hollywood-esque style fundraiser for Joe Biden, in which they raised $25 million in one evening. Meanwhile, Donald J. Trump went out and visited the family and paid respects to the fallen police officer who was killed here on Monday. Here, I don't live in New York anymore. Who was killed in New York by a hardened criminal who had been released out of prison, I think, on 21 different times or 21 different counts. And it's just another reflection of the Obama, Biden, Clinton, defund the police, anti-rule of law, anything goes sort of principles that leaves a good man dead. And you think Obama, you think Biden, you think Clinton had anything to say about that sort of thing? No, Trump's there taking care of real business. And these other three are taking photos for $100,000 a clip.
I mean, they also had Lizzo perform, who, I don't know, a few months ago was just...
People don't know, listening to us, don't know who Lizzo is.
Lizzo is the really chubby black woman who...
Chubby is an understatement. She's grotesque.
Grotesque, obese, and by the way, has a lawsuit against her for actual assault. So
yeah, she wears bikinis, and she really flaunts her body, which is not a bikini body by any means, and that's not shaming her. I'm just saying that's her shtick. Her shtick is to take her overweightness and to basically exploit it in the sense of that's what she sends grotesque messages to young kids. That's the best way of saying it.
Again, like you said,
sexual messages.
It's representative because you got three former presidents, one who is absolutely incompetent right now, two is radical and is all about the fundamental change, and then third, gets peddled out every once in a while because ever since the Epstein stuff, it's just revealed he's beyond a pedo. He's just weird. They're there raising $25 million. And of course, mainstream headlines are going to say it's the biggest money ever raised, but it's all from mega millionaire liberal donors.
Yes.
And I don't want to sound like I'm stealing this idea, but Ryan and I were listening to Dan Bongino the other day, and he even emphasized the importance, right, of grassroots donations. Because if you look at the Trump donation page, it's $5, $20, $10 from everyday Americans. And to me, that matters more than the CEO of Facebook or of, I don't know, who's another maker.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But you know what I'm
lefties.
talking about? The far lefties
of
that
course.
will throw millions. It's a juxtaposition where I'm like, how in the world is this man actually going to win?
The very important part in what you're saying there is if we were to create a simple math equation, forget about billions and hundreds of millions, you got one guy who's willing to donate $100 to Joe Biden, and you got 100 people who are willing to donate $1 to Donald Trump. They may be equal in terms of the amount of money that they've raised, but at the voter booth, Biden gets killed.
Yeah.
And so that is the message there. Now, Trump is also having a fundraiser of the like kind at Mar-a-Lago. It's coming up it's $250,000 per ticket. So what I like about that, it's Trump's way of showing, hey, I got big donors too who are willing to put big, huge bucks behind me. And unlike you, Joe Biden, who wouldn't be able to raise that, that's another important thing to state here. Not only do you have the $5, $10, $20 American supporting Trump, and you've got only the mega donor going at Biden, but you pull out Lizzo, whatever her name is. You pull out the others. Jason Bateman was there, star of Ozark. You take out Barack Obama and Clinton. These are all famous, influencing, celebrities, if you want to call it, if you want to see celebrities. You pull them, you pull those guys out, and it's only a fundraiser for Joe Biden. He's the only act on the card. You're not going to get $25 million, and that speaks volumes.
And let's not forget, too, because I think a big reason why it's important that Trump has those big donors is because he's getting 4 indictments tossed at him with these ridiculous freaking pricing points, such as, a $454 million bond, then gets reduced to $175. So, he could play both games. He could play the game of the small donors because, one, him attending that cop's funeral, right? Like, he should probably not want to be anywhere near New York after the way that state has treated him. And each and every day, I don't understand how people live in New York. I think people who choose to stay there should be examined in the head. But, and I was saying it to Ryan, I think a really big reason he wanted to go there too is because back in his day before he was president, when he was working in New York, in the city, I think he probably out of any other president had the best relationship with NYPD. Whether it was an event at Trump Tower, whether it was an event he was going to, he was constantly in coordination with the New York Police Department. So there's a big mutual respect there that, not saying that he's not, he's pro-cop across the nation, but I think he has a unique, special relationship with the NYPD in particular, considering all his years of doing business there.
Of course. The other thing that obviously keeps Trump and Biden on opposite sides of the spectrum is how it is that they do indeed address immigration. There is a big ruling that should come down today. Health concerns, this is out of the New York Times, health concerns mount for migrant children at outdoor holding sites. A federal judge is expected to rule soon, if not today, on whether the government must provide shelter, food, and medical care to minors while they await processing. I am hard-pressed to believe that the majority of Americans in this country want the migrants and the migrant children to be treated first and better than the American citizen. And, Trump's whole thing is America first, America first, Americans first, Americans first. And we have spoke about this, my analogy that I use, which basically I borrowed from a good guy named Michael Cutler. When you're on an airplane and that airplane is in distress and those air masks fall down from the ceiling, if they do fall down, watch out if you're on a Boeing. But if they fall down, and if I'm next to, if I'm in the middle seat and Ryan's to my right and you're to my left, it doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 5 and 6, or you could be 25 and 26. As a parent, my first instinct is going to be to put those masks on your face. But they tell you not to do that. They tell you to put the mask on your own face because you need to be able to breathe and be healthy and be clear-minded. You have to have all your oxygen in order to be able to assist those who need assistance. It is a very, very clear and defined reason why, and it makes all the sense in the world. So if we were on a plane, God forbid, and there was distress and they came down, I would put it on me first quickly so I could help my sons. That example is so important because what we are seeing here from the Biden administration is a direct assault on the American citizen. They are giving all the things that we're seeing Americans not get: shelter, food, medical assistance. I mean, it is absolutely bizarre how it is that things are happening. I mean, I have so many lists that I can tell you of people who are not able to get medical assistance. They're not able to get medical, the drugs they need or the tests they need because they don't have insurance or because they don't have the, I don't know, that they don't have the money to lay out as a deposit, and they're left in squalor. But how many veterans, how many families, how many young children do we have living on the streets? And yet they are blown off. And instead, we're going to sit here and have a judge focus their time on us having to give this kind of thing to a migrant who, by the way, by choice, decided to break our laws. And this is what the Democrats and the Democrats of California are going to focus on. Your 2 cents on that, and then we got to move to the next story.
Look, I'll make it short. I am just exhausted of seeing true Americans not being prioritized. I'm tired of seeing videos of veterans who, feel like they have to resort to doing selfie videos to say how much they've been failed by their own government, by their own country. And yet, the favoritism that illegal immigrants see every day is just, it's beyond baffling. Illegal aliens, I should correct myself.
It's illegal aliens. It's not illegal immigrants.
I know. You know what it is? Because when you have to read through so much BS reports from some of these people, it just sometimes it's mind-numbingly into your brain. So yeah, illegal aliens.
Yeah. So the fact that this country now is taking care of foreigners before they're taking care of Americans, now that they're catering to what boxes you can check, multiple boxes, we're going to cater the foreigners instead of Americans. This next story shouldn't come as any surprise, and we're going to go over it quick. In fact, Ryan, just play the video on top of our voice as we explain this. In this video, you're going to see that there are two men pretty much in their, it looks like they're in their late 30s, maybe early 40s, and another female that is with them. Apparently, they have identified themselves as being FBI agents, and this is happening in Oklahoma. And so they knock on this woman's door. The video is too long. That's why I'm not playing it for you. So just trust me, this is what it says. In fact, maybe Ryan will just play a couple of seconds, but in a few seconds from now. But basically, they knock on her door, and they admit that they are there to interview her because of what she has written on Facebook about Joe Biden. So she has voiced her displeasure with Joe Biden, and Facebook apparently took those comments, threw them to the FBI, and now the FBI is knocking on the door of a woman who basically wrote things that were negative about Joe Biden. That is our country. Ryan, why don't you play the section right here? It's sort of towards the end where they admit that they're just there to interrogate her about the posts she made on social media. Give it a look.
Okay, so the phone number for the FBI in Oklahoma City is 405-290-7770.
Okay.
If you just call me for the name, then we'll be able to get you in contact with us and we'll be happy to speak.
And tell him that Facebook flagged me for posts.
Facebook gave us a couple screenshots of your accounts.
Okay. So we no longer live in a free country and we can't say what we want?
No, we totally do. That's why we're not here to arrest you or anything like that.
Well, you can't arrest me for freedom of speech. We live in America.
Correct.
Exactly. So it's kind of weird that you want to come talk to me about me exercising my freedom of speech.
We do this every day, all day long, talk to people.
Okay.
It's just an effort to keep everybody safe, make sure that nobody has any ill will or bad intent or anything like that. And we've got no reason to believe necessarily that that's you, and that's why we just wanted to have a conversation.
So do you have a conversation with everybody on the neighborhood?
Do you have information with anybody else in the neighborhood?
I mean, all I've done is exercise my right as an American citizen on a public social media platform with my personal opinions. Correct? Okay. Most of the individuals, right, in America, especially older generation, right, have Facebook. Are you questioning all the citizens in America?
We certainly would if we had any sort of concerns.
Okay, so you have concerns about my personal opinions?
If you don't want to talk to us, then you can.
I'm definitely not going to have a talk with you.
Well, thank you for your time this morning, and feel free to reach out to us.
Okay, they're so-called FBI.
I think we should change the wording there with interrogate to intimidate, because this is literally what that tactic is. To your point, it's representative of our country. I mean, come on, look at this person's house. You really they're the threat that we're facing. How about we use these resources to actually, I don't know, Go down to the border and deal with the people who literally openly admit that they are from a previous terrorist organization.
Hold on, Dennis. What about this? What about we address the fact that measles were no longer a thing in the United States? We have this. This was from yesterday. Cases of the measles surged by 800% in 2024, and it's all because of Biden's border. I mean, let's not forget, right? You could have lost your job only a couple of years ago because you didn't go get the jab. So they were so worried about public health, you didn't get the jab and you lost your job. And yet you were kicked out of the military. And yet we got people coming across the border right now bringing measles and then giving those to our children, the children in this country who are by and large unvaccinated. And that's not a problem. My God, is that selective concern or what?
So, yeah, measles should not be back. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. Here's another one that will blow your mind, okay? In the latest border-related security lapse, the Biden administration, hundreds of thousands of deportation cases have been thrown out by immigration judges because the Department of Homeland Security failed to file the required NTA with the court. So paperwork. First of all, we're getting inundated with so many different people from so many different countries. We don't have the people to process this. And so for basic paperwork, we're going to just say, no, deportation's not a case. This is what's happening underneath. We've got measles, we've got crime, we've got criminals. This is what we're dealing with here in the United States of America under Joe Biden and the radical Democrats.
You know, I think at this point, DEI should be destruction, embarrassment, and incompetence, because this is so representative that, you know, I also had this discussion with Ryan. I feel like incompetence at this point is so heavily promoted within job markets, within our government, within our institutions. It's like, if you're as incompetent as possible, you get promoted. I mean, how in the world do you have the DHS, which is supposed to be one of the strongest departments of our government?
It was created after 9/11.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's supposed to be like, you know, our homeland, our home front.
Let me give this to you from this is from Judicial Watch. Okay. The Department of Homeland Security, which was created after 9/11 to prevent another terrorist attack and ensure the country is safe, failed to file the required notice to appear, which is an NTA, with the court. Without a proper filing from the feds, courts lack authority to hear immigration cases, which in the last few years have often involved enormous amounts of illegal aliens seeking asylum. Since Biden became president, an unprecedented 200,000 deportation cases have been discarded thanks to the DHS blunder. According to government records cited in a worrisome report issued this week by the nonpartisan Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse at Syracuse University, these large numbers of dismissals and what then happens raise serious concerns, the researchers write in the report, which includes records through February 2024. They note that DHS's duty to file NTAs with immigration courts is an essential step in the immigration enforcement process because removal cases are initiated when the agency issues an NTA to an illegal immigrant, including those seeking asylum. The NTA alleges that the agency has reason to believe that the individual can and should be deported, lists these reasons, and asks an immigration judge to issue a removal order. So think about this. Why would a agency that specializes in defending the homeland, that specializes in NTAs, somehow, some way, just forget 200,000 NTAs to be submitted? Do you think that could be by design?
It has to be, because again, I can only think incompetence goes so far. So at this point, it has to be by the design of how do we just make it as easy as possible for no accountability to be applied to these legal aliens that are here. Again, I know we got Mike Johnson sending the impeachment articles to the Senate, and yet that's not going to really go anywhere. But it's still representative of the fact that not just Biden. I mean, I don't know, and I've only lived a 28-year life. I just don't know any other administration that has exuberated such absolute incompetence. I mean, in every department that Biden has had, including DHS with Mayorkas, it is just backwards.
I guarantee you, again, like I said in the beginning of the thing, I would bet everything I have that of the 200,000 cases that were thrown out, there are multiple people in that group who have either raped, murdered, beaten, stolen from, drugged, you name it, an American citizen. And for the sake of a piece of paper, this is why somebody lost their life or lost their purity or lost whatever it was. It is an absolute crime. And this is the nation we're in. We started this off and we talked very long today about faith and about a godless society. We're going to end the program here with a video. This woman, there's a new thing going on. You guys recorded it yesterday, talked about it yesterday. There's a new thing going on where guys just randomly go up to women in New York if they're looking down at their phone and they punch them in the face. And Dennis and Ryan played 3 videos yesterday of 3 different women showing you clearly that they've been pummeled. We're going to play a report right now. It is unbelievable what has happened to this poor woman. Her face is completely mangled. And to make matters worse, to add insult on top of injury, the person was allowed to leave the police. Nothing. No bail, no nothing. Just released back into the general public. No foul at all. Punching the crap out of somebody for no reason. Ryan, play the video.
Eyewitness News exclusive. Pichardo says he didn't say a word, just stared at her, then broke her jaw.
He hit me very, very strong over here. And he break everything here. Everything's break.
It happened yesterday around 5 p.m. on Grand Avenue near Dean Street. Pichardo was a school bus aide and was returning from work, just steps away from home when she was slugged. Her brother owns a restaurant across the street from where she lives. He and this employee chased the suspect down. Johan Flores says he was still standing there. When they confronted him, he denied attacking Pichardo, cold and emotionless. They followed him for several blocks and stopped him from fleeing until police arrived. Cops arrested 33-year-old Franz Judy. The suspect was charged with misdemeanor assault, meaning he's not bail eligible. He'll be released back onto the street. And that's the part that has the victim and her family frustrated and afraid.
Every time I see one man, I cross. I don't want to be close to nobody. I'm very afraid, yes. I turn my son everywhere I go. I want you to walk with me.
He's being charged with assault 3, not with a felony, because there's no intent. So therefore, he's being just charged with that. He has 7 prior arrests for assault charges, and he's out in the street.
In Crown Heights, Brooklyn, Sefan Kim, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Look, I mean, Ryan and I hit it yesterday with those 3 videos, and then you can see it with this report. And even the one we did yesterday, the girl at the end was like laughing about it. I mean, talk about backwards. I even tried starting a little hashtag on Twitter, Escape NY 2024, because this is just beyond crazy. This is a promotion of violence and criminality in that city. If you're a victim of like an actual assault, no, you're actually probably now considered the criminal, and the criminal is now the victim. And until that mentality is warped and changed, it is not a safe city to visit, live in, or even just, I don't know, participate in.
Don't make a mistake, Dennis. New York City just happens to be the place with the biggest lights and the biggest cameras. This is happening throughout the entire country. You know it and I know it. Yes. We all know it. And, you know, New York just happens to be, just like LA, happens to be the place where all the cameras are always rolling. So that's why we see so much of this there. But trust me when I tell you, it is literally everywhere. Yep. And that is a sign of the times, and the sign of the times is Barack Obama and Joe Biden and radical Democrats who just will allow criminals to go back out time and time again. George Soros must be laughing his ass off today as he watches these sort of things, because that's what he bought and paid for, and he's getting exactly what he wants. And all of us are sitting here watching it happen and doing nothing other than complaining about it on social media. And when you do complain about social media, be ready for some authorities to show up to your house and question you about what it is that you're posting and what you're not posting on social media. So if you want to say something bad about Joe Biden, you may want to think twice about how it is you say it. With that being said, we're going to wrap up now. It's Good Friday. Listen, on behalf of Dennis, on behalf of Ryan, on behalf of my entire family, we wish you the most pleasurable, happy, faithful Easter Sunday you can possibly have. In fact, usually on Friday nights, my wife Mary and I do a very popular wine and talk. We are not going to do it this week simply because I'm not in a mood to be funny, obviously with the loss of my father this week. So we're going to put that off because it's going to be hysterical next week when we play our whole Key West adventure. So I want to give that trip what it deserves. So if you're listening and you're Team DML and you're like, oh, I can't wait for tonight, I'm going to have my wine out and I'm going to say, nope, celebrate Good Friday, and we'll be with you next Friday when we go over the wine and talk. Until next time, may God bless you, your family, these United States, and all the victims of all the different things that we talked about here today.
And for today's Team DML blessing, I'd like to give it to Marjorie McConville. And just for the rest of Team DML and everyone watching, yeah, just a very happy Easter. I'm excited to spend my weekend with my family. So
excellent. We'll talk to you soon.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.